There's so much information available on the internet that sometimes it can be hard for people to interpret everything that they get. I'm a firm believer in spending all the time that's necessary in order for patients and their families to fully understand what's going on to make a good decision.
Hi, I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Wednesday, October the 25th. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence voted last night on a late vote in the U.S. Senate to break a 50-50 tie, and they passed a law that will overturn a rule that forbid compulsory arbitration of disputes with banks and credit card companies. The Senate, in short, voted for banks and credit card companies against the interest of consumers. It's very difficult to go to arbitration with a small complaint against a credit card company. That's why they passed the rule. Well, needless to say, Tom Cotton and John Bozeman voted on the side of the credit card companies for Wells Fargo and against the interest of consumers. As expected, in a somewhat symbolic note, Tom Cotton, our senator, came in from a fancy soiree somewhere wearing a tuxedo for the vote. He looked a little like Daddy Warbucks on the floor of the Senate. Elsewhere today, a U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals finally cleared the way many weeks later for a teenager in Texas, an undocumented immigrant, to have the abortion she sought. Attorney General Leslie Rutledge of Arkansas was among those who tried desperately to prevent this woman from having access to medical services she thought. Finally, they lost. For the time being, at least, women still do have medical rights in the United States under our Constitution. Jan Morgan, a right-wing gun range owner in Hot Springs, is talking about running for governor as a Republican against Asa Hutchinson next year. She says it's an exploratory committee, but she sounds pretty serious. On Facebook last night, she announced the hiring of a campaign consultant, a former Arkansas Republican operator who has also had a past working for Roy Moore, the insurgent right-wing candidate for U.S. Senate from Alabama, and also for Carly Fiorina. If those aren't resume builders, I don't know what are. Jan Morgan versus Asa Hutchinson could be interesting. The city of Hot Springs, or at least its Visitors Bureau, announced today that the Walton Family Foundation had given them $650,000, and they're going to match it to build 16 miles of a mountain bike trail that's going to grow eventually to 44 miles of mountain bike trails in the city. They think this will make another reason to visit Hot Springs as tourists, to lure some of the growing mountain bike audience. In southwest Little Rock this morning, an apartment complex that has been called to by police many times before. One person was killed and another person was seriously wounded in a gun battle that the police can't quite yet explain. More homicides, it's up to 50 or 48 if you don't count the 2 people killed by police during the last year. 28 medical professionals, a number of doctors, have written a letter to Governor Asa Hutchinson asking him to show mercy to Jack Greene, a capital murder convict who faces the death penalty November 9th in Arkansas. The doctors say he's mentally incompetent. At a minimum, they say there should be an independent hearing on this, that Greene's mental competency shouldn't be decided simply by state correction department officials, which is the state of the law now. MetroPlan, the planning agency for local governments, met this morning, and Leslie Peacock tells me that there was discussion about the highway department's move toward raising speed limits on Arkansas highways. They seem to believe it is going to happen. Don't know exactly how it's going to take effect. Certainly in the rural areas of the interstates, we'll probably be looking at a 75-mile-an-hour speed limit, which probably means everybody will be going 80 or so by then, don't you think? Interesting article on Vox this morning that I mentioned on arkansasblog.com, and it took was an analysis of votes in the 2016 presidential election, trying to determine if there's been something of a true shift in voting patterns in the United States. Well, not much everywhere, but they did detect this. In the upper Midwest and in certain rural areas of the Northeast, they found a decided shift among white, uneducated voters, yes, in the direction of Donald Trump. And they think this may be something of a permanent shift in those areas. Of course, here in Arkansas, we saw the shift of white, less educated voters in that direction several years ago, and it looks like it's going to last. All the more reason to resist. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.